Keep your hands and head inside the vehicle at all times. Buckle your seatbelts, check your mirrors, sit on back and relax. It's lights out and away we go for the Tall and Short of It podcast. Good evening, everyone. You're listening to another episode of the Tall and Short of It podcast. I'm your host, Justin.
I'm Aaron. Welcome back, everyone, for another exciting episode chocked full of a lot of F1. We've got some LCS Worlds initial previews with what teams will be attending after qualifying there, along with some different champions and picks and bans that we think might be interesting to keep an eye out for during this year's Worlds Championship. Yep. And then, of course, some Magic the Gathering with the Commander 9 League that Justin had some more games this Monday. But yeah, another week by, another week doing the pod. Good to see you, man.
Yeah, good to see you too. Give me the tall and short of your week. What's how you been?
I have been pretty good. So getting into the Rose, Thorn, and Seed kind of that builds on my week. So over the weekend, I was down at the shore, celebrating my friend's birthday and all, end of summer for Labor Day. So we had a really good time down there. Didn't walk into any swamps this time, so that's a plus. Listened to my body, didn't get too drunk, and took myself home when I needed to. So more intelligent decisions were made, which was which was good for me. So a pretty good Rose. I had a solid week, nice weekend and everything. My Thorn is actually a little more with kind of the start of this week more than end of last week, but I was sent to one of our properties for work that is, well, because of the hurricane that came through, it flooded out all of the buildings, and the entire first floor of every building was completely underwater. So the buildings have been condemned per the fire marshal, and so the past 2 days I've essentially been helping residents come in, explain to them that they can't go back to their homes indefinitely or potentially ever if they don't reopen the buildings, and explaining to people who don't have very many options in terms of where to go that they can't stay here. So that was a pretty shitty part of my week. I just felt, I don't know, it was kind of eye-opening, I guess, seeing it all firsthand and seeing, like, because it's our only property that we have that's approved for, like, low-income housing. Okay. So a lot of the people, one, don't have savings or money or whatever to be able to just jump in and be like, oh, well, I can't come back to my apartment, just go get the next one. Like, a lot of them are sleeping at family members, friends, relatives, shelters. Like, it's rough. And some of them have been there for a really long time too. And them, like, there's a guy who's lived there for almost 25 years, and he is now just, like, lost his home. And, like, that's most of my life that he has lived there, and now he's just, like, doesn't have his home anymore. Right. It just blows. It feels really bad, and I don't imagine that. I think the bad part about it as well is that, like, I don't imagine that the company and all will see rebuilding and doing all of that work and putting all that money in as a just, like, smart financial decision, which means that the apartments won't open back up, they won't be low-income housing, and there's just less for people who already don't have a lot. There's just less options. So,
and it's not even that it's the building kicking people out, yada yada yada. It's the it's just the township, the city saying these are not fit to live here anymore, and it's an unfortunate circumstance. And in those scenarios, it's not like the the rental company has to provide any assistance or things like that. So it
Yeah.
is pretty hurt, as you would
Yeah.
say.
Yeah, I mean, we're doing what we can. We're giving everyone their security deposit back and like expediting that process. Usually that is a 30-day process to after people move out. We're getting them their security deposit refunds in full like within a week or so.
Right.
Like we're doing what we can. We're trying to direct them towards resources like be there to help explain the process, work with housing authority and everything to try and figure things out. But it's just rough seeing that many people and their lives just kind of being devastated. It's horrible. So
Yeah, just for a couple days of rain, man.
yeah,
It's wild. It's wild, the power of rain or the power of water in large amounts.
water is terrifying. Like it doesn't matter what you do, it's getting in everything. And I mean, at this point, like we're trying to just get people to get their things out because with the entire first floor flooding that much, there's already so much like mold and things like that growing, and we're like, for the people who didn't already lose everything, like we don't want you to lose things because of like all this moisture and everything that's just sitting.
Oh god, that's so gross.
Yeah, it's terrible. And there's people taking advantage of the situation, trying to break into the buildings and stuff. And it's like, just like, I don't know. These people have already had it hard enough, and people are like, "Oh, I'm gonna try and loot." It's like,
Right.
come on. So
Jeez, man. Talk about making it harder on them. That's so rough.
yeah, so pretty.
Damn, that's a big thorn, man. I'm sorry to hear it. Prayers go out to the people who have been displaced. Hopefully things can turn around for them.
Yeah, I'm hoping so. It's just I wish I could do more, but I've also tried to just keep my attitude of like, hey, I'm doing everything I can to help them out, be like of assistance and whatnot. So at the end of the day, that's all I can do. It's kind of up to the powers that be to see that these people are taken care of. So I'm doing my part at least. So
Yeah, nice.
yeah, but the seed I had is kind of a little more interesting, I guess, or a little more less of a downer, but
Yeah, those poor people losing their homes. Not interesting
no,
at all.
not that it's not interesting. It's just I know that can kind of set a tone for everything else.
Poverty's so boring.
Nah, come on.
I'm just fucking with you.
No, more so kind of like future things, and so
Sure.
I've like so I think I'd mentioned that Colleen and I are going on a trip to Tampa for a wedding that we're going to and everything coming up, and so I determined it was a good time to tell my parents that over guess it was yesterday because they're I mean, the idea of two unmarried people sharing a space together does not make them feel warm and fuzzy inside. So I was able to have that preliminary just explain to my parents like, hey, I'm an adult, like, which is a tough conversation for me to have. So it was pretty good to be able to kind of like approach a topic that normally would be pretty uncomfortable and just kind of address it and just like be an adult about it. Because like, I mean, Colleen was down at the shore this weekend. The first question my mom asked me was like, oh, like what was the sleeping arrangement down there? I'm like why? Like, yeah. So it's an
That's tough, dude.
Yeah, but it's an uncomfortable conversation, but it's one of a number that I expect to have with my family based on their values and the conflict with what I plan to do with my life. So it's not a fun conversation, but I am glad that I felt comfortable like doing that after those are conversations that I just would kind of avoid or play off for years. So I feel like that's a step forward for myself in terms of like just living my life without feeling restricted based on my family's like values and opinions and all.
Yeah.
So
No, I like that a lot.
yeah,
That's cool,
I
man.
think it's the right decision for me, and I'm hopefully they'll respect those decisions. So
Well, even if they don't respect the decisions, they have to respect the backbone, you know? Like
that's fair.
there's a lot that has to be said for like not agreeing with what the person said, but appreciating the fact that they were able to say it at least. You
True.
know, I think that's more of a parent's job at this point in the dynamic. So yeah, I'm glad to hear that it went well with few bumps.
Yeah, it's not definitely not an easy conversation. Going
No.
against your family's full values and opinions and whatnot, but yeah, it was gonna happen sooner or later, and
Mhm.
I just put it off for so long. I'm glad that I finally actually just like dove in and was like, okay, I'm gonna address this a little bit.
Yeah, because then you lose out on the opportunity to do fun stuff, right? If you're fearing, oh, what would they say about this? Let's just not go.
Or to have to like half truth or lie or just not tell
Yeah,
my family
yeah.
about things just to avoid uncomfortable conversations. I think that's easy to do, to just kind of dodge stuff and
Hmm.
whatever. So
Yeah, no, I think the tougher and right route is the route that you went. So yeah, man, kudos. I like that.
thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
But
Hmm.
your week, how's it been?
It's been okay. It's been slow. And slow isn't like I don't I don't feel like I'm helping. I don't feel that useful during slow weeks. So my rose thorn scene is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to start with my seed. Um, if you're on video, you can see that I'm standing. I'm not in my hunker down turret position. Um, I've got rid of the chair. I'm in the process of saving up for like a nice ergonomic, comfortable battle throne. But
You
until
don't look
then,
very locked in right now.
I know I'm like bouncing around, like leaning, and whatever. It's
No.
fine. But this is the seed of the standing is that I'm on my computer less because I can't just like sit down and just like just click around, watch this, look at that, read this. It's I'm more like intentional, or I have to be more intentional with the standing desk. So like if I'm gonna be here, I'm I'm intentional about it. So I've probably cut a decent amount of hours of computer time just in the small time that I've had the standing arrangement. So that's like half of a good thing. So that's my seed for the week. Now my thorn and my rose kind of go hand in hand. So my rose is my list. I have a list of things every day on an app on my phone that helps me just like stay productive, get things done, make sure I'm not forgetting things, and just like staying on top of like fitness and health things. It's got like my workout, anything that like has to be prepped for the day, like it's all there. And it's auto generating, so it's like my little personal assistant, right? So on days and weeks when I'm feeling like less than, um, that list I found really helps keep me on track. Because even if I'm feeling like a lump on a log, as long as I'm still crossing that stuff off the list, it doesn't matter how I feel. As long as I'm still getting my shit done, and that list helps me get that shit done when I'm feeling not so great. So that's my rose. So
Gotcha.
I like the list.
Nice.
And then my thorn is kind of the other half of having life things connected to your cell phone or a screen, is that like I feel myself reaching for the phone or like going online just like to check something, and I don't have anything to check. Like I don't have Twitter on my phone. Like I took Reddit off my phone. Like, there's a lot of things that I can't just like automatically click to just mindlessly scroll. So it's funny, like, because I can catch myself very easily just like hunting for that mindlessness, because there's nothing there to mindlessly scroll through. Like, the closest thing is Discord, and there's like a couple of conversations that I read through, and then I realize that I've never talked to some of these people in my life, and I'm just like lurking on their conversations. So I close out, and I try and go do something else. But my thorn is these like distractions that I know aren't real, right? These things that pull my attention in a direction where I know there isn't even something in that direction, right? So it's like these weird like moments of like lost attention, and I really feel that on days like today, and like on my slower days.
Is that always a bad thing though? Like, to obviously having a habit of constantly scrolling and not like, and just like using that as like an escape from like whatever, and just like not, you're just doing it to do it, and those kinds of things. That's like a negative habit that can become very time consuming and affect you negatively in the long term. But like, at the same time, is there any like, if it's kept in a like kept in check, like doing some mindlessly scrolling when you're on point the rest of the day, taking a little time to just like give your brain a break and all, is that always a negative, I guess, as long as it doesn't become
I don't think so.
Because I feel like to some extent, like, you are very good at keeping like your ducks in a row and keeping on top of everything, because you have a business and you have like a girlfriend and you have like a life that you have to keep things up for, to pay rent and bills and like whatever else. But yeah, like sometimes I feel like those distractions, and I guess it's like choosing what you want your distractions or like breaks essentially to be.
Right.
So whether you want that to be like watching a show or like reading a book or listening to music and all, which I know music you've been trying to do more, listening definitely. And everything, like, I guess as long as I would just worry that you might burn yourself out if you're just avoiding taking breaks in general, because you do kind of need those.
I definitely agree. I definitely agree that you need breaks.
Okay.
And I guess this isn't like, I do take breaks.
Okay.
I guess it's more of a comment on when I know I haven't earned the break yet, and the thing that I'm doing to break isn't useful at all. Gotcha. So it's like two pins in the side, where it's like you're doing the thing out of time, right? Like you should like do your exercises first before you get, your break, which I think that like positive reinforcement is healthy, but then also the thing that you're doing to break isn't even like something that you enjoy. It's just like it's a little bit mindless. So to that I would just say, yeah, I think it's just about avoiding the mindless breaking, and then just taking good useful breaks, that are more enjoyable.
That makes sense.
But yeah, to your point, yeah, a little bit of scrolling here and there, laughing at a meme, posting this and that. Oh, dude, I'm all for it. I think breaks are necessary.
Okay.
But yeah, speaking of breaks, the Mercedes organization broke their silence. We know all of the details now.
Well, and I think that kind of started or stemmed from the Kimi announcement that we had and everything this past week. And so having Kimi retire and everything opened up that spot with Alfa Romeo. It gave an opportunity for the first signing to be announced, which was Mr. Valtteri Bottas to Alfa Romeo this coming year. So,
this is so Kimi's announcement was before the Zandvoort Grand Prix this weekend.
Correct.
And then we got the Valtteri news and other Mercedes news this week.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that I think it's going to be interesting with Valtteri at Alfa Romeo. Like, I think we'll get to see kind of how competitive he really can be, and also if Alfa Romeo is willing to put in the money and effort and time to give him a really good quality car in 2022 with the new regulations and all, because they've got a good driver with Valtteri. I think he's definitely an upgrade from Kimi in terms of just like Kimi was at the end of his career. He was ready to retire, and he was not as competitive as he once was. Not that he wasn't competitive at all, but this is an opportunity to take a driver that's from the top of the field, still has a good amount of time that he could be potentially racing. I think Valtteri is only like 29 or something like that. He is 32. So he's still at least got probably, I'd say, 3 to 4 years left in his F1 career potentially. So I think that could be exciting. And it's something that I heard on one of the podcasts or F1 talks I was listening to about changing, hopefully Alfa Romeo wanting to change their kind of status right now in F1, which is essentially like the gift shop, I think was the word that they referred to it as.
Oh, that's interesting.
Being like, hey, stop at the gift shop on your way out. I think it was the WTF1 race review, or maybe talk about just the Valtteri news.
Gotcha. That's interesting.
But yeah, they called it the gift shop, like, because Kimi went to Alfa Romeo after his time with Ferrari being really competitive, and then now Valtteri, after being competitive on Mercedes for a while, going to Alfa Romeo. They're like they're hoping that it doesn't just end up being that, like, a revolving door of like, hey, this really good driver is like wants to hang around F1, but they can't quite be at the top. Like, here's a team for them.
Right.
Because that just weakens the competition. It does do kind of what we've talked about before and blocks up seats from young drivers who we think might be deserving of F1 seats and whatnot. So
yeah, that's a really interesting idea. The gift shop of, you know, stop here before you go. The one note that I would make on Valtteri's move to Alfa Romeo is that hopefully he gets just like better support there. And this is just from somebody who has not even close to all of the information on race day, is that it just seems like sometimes Valtteri's strategy gets second fiddle to Lewis, and fair enough. You know, Lewis is he's shooting for the championship, he's fighting against Max, blah, 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 blah. What is unfortunate for Valtteri is somebody who he's not like a P5, P6 driver. He is consistently P2, P3, can do P1 on a good qualifying day. So you're taking somebody that is like a quality driver, somebody who is prepared to drive at the top of the table, and he gets what feels like either dismissal or just like just subordination to Lewis's strategy, which makes Valtteri look not so stellar, and that he's just like playing to the team strategy. And I think when you're fighting for titles and championships, I think that's perfectly like necessary and useful and whatever. For Valtteri's outlook on life, though. I don't think it's that strong. And recently, in interviews in the pre and post races, he doesn't seem like that happy. There's a lot of, I don't want to say like pointing fingers and blame, but just like, well, yeah, this went wrong. We're gonna have to learn. Another thing went wrong. We're gonna have to learn. So you can just see the palpable frustration from Kimi. So hopefully, the move to Alfa Romeo gets him a new lease on life, not just a new drive. Hopefully, they can maybe put some more support under him that maybe Mercedes couldn't if they had too much of their resources in the Lewis basket. And who knows? Like I'm prepared to be totally wrong on that, and like, oh well, F1 teams can only blah blah blah. That fair enough. You only have so many resources. I think just from a fan of the driver, I'm hoping that the move is not only good competitively for him and the team, but I hope the move is good for him just like as a person doing what he wants to do in life.
Yeah, I think it would have been a huge loss to F1 to lose him because there was the potential for him to just not have a seat. If Kimi didn't retire, if Alfa Romeo decided, hey, Robert Kubica has been our reserve driver for the past couple of years, let's give him another shot in that seat. There was potential for him to be out of F1, which would have been for such a great driver a pretty big loss in my opinion to the sport. But I agree. I mean, I think that comes with the territory of there was a young driver chomping at the bit for his seat. Mercedes wasn't willing to commit to multiple year contracts for him and everything, and we're kind of like, I feel like it would be very tough to be in an upbeat, super positive mood when not only is your team not winning races and is close to losing the Constructors' Championship compared to in previous years, but also you have this kind of nagging thing in the back of your mind. I mean, when he DNF'd earlier on in the season, we saw Toto come out and initially just throw the blame on him, and Valtteri stopped a couple of centimeters past his stopping point in the block. That's why that wheel nut got stuck on. Or that was this season, right? Or is that last season? Am I losing my mind?
No, I'm pretty sure that was at the start of this season.
I thought it was. I thought that was okay. So just making sure I'm not going crazy, but like you see his team behind him not just like being like, hey, it was a mechanical issue. Like they came out and were like, yeah, he messed up, and then ended up retracting it later on. Like that's not an attitude that probably makes you feel warm and fuzzy and good about like, oh, I just got P3, but I'm behind Max and not really racing Lewis like I was last year. Like,
right.
It's a tough spot to be in, to kind of feel on the chopping block and all. So
it's good that he still has a drive. That Alfa Romeo had the had the open seat with Kimi being out for next year. So yeah, that's good for I think the sport overall that he's gonna continue to be here, because I think the 2022 season is gonna bring a lot of changes. That car looks crazy to the degree that like. It feels like it's going to be anybody's game, especially with like Haas literally taking a whole year of competition off pretty much, saying like, 2022 is going to be our year. They're at the bottom of the table. I think overall just a lot of exciting stuff are coming for the 2022 season, and it seems like Alfa Romeo is using the Valtteri move to put themselves in a really good competitive position, at least with drivers.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see who they decide to go with as their second driver, because they haven't confirmed the second seat as of yet. So
I think they're going to keep Giovinazzi.
I think they will too, but
the Italian stallion.
But even if, but it's still just unconfirmed. So, but I think that is a good point with the 2022 season. Like, we, I think that is a good point with the 2022 season. Like, we, I think that is a good point with the 2022 season. Like, we, I think that is a good point with the 2022 season. Like, we, I think that is a good point with the 2022 season. Like, we, I think that is a good point with the 2022 season. Like, we, I think that is a good point with the 2022 season. Like, we, I think that is a good point with the 2022 season. Like, we, I think that is a good point with the 2022 season. Like, we, I think that is a good point with the 2022 season. Like, we, I think that is a good point with the 2022 season. Like, we, I think that is a good point with the 2022 season. Like, we, I think that is a good point with the 2022 season. Like, we, I think that is a good point with the 2022 season. Like, we, I think that is a good point with the 2022 season. Like, we, I think that is a good point with the 2022 season. Like, we, I think that is a good point with the 2022 season. Like, we, I think that is a good point with the 2022 all of these cars have been in development and have not had time to really be tested at all. Like, for all we know, some of the teams might just like hit a home run, knock it out of the park, have figured out the aerodynamics and what's going to work well with the new regulations all. And there's potential for a number of teams trying some very different things within the realm of possibilities. Yep. And some like going well or some failing. I mean, there's potential that Mercedes and Red Bull will somehow think that they have something locked in, and it just doesn't work the way that they're expecting it to. So there's a lot of potential to shake things up. So that is definitely a good point with Alfa Romeo. In terms of just good quality drivers, though, and seats and all, you did mention briefly the Mercedes announcement. So a good quality young driver being promoted into the Mercedes seat. I don't think anyone saw this coming.
Yeah, right out of left field. Hasn't been bubbling or brewing at all. A total surprise. Yeah, kind of sideswiped us, and that is the George Russell moving up from the Mercedes sister team Williams up to Mercedes driver number 2. He's taking Valtteri's seat with him moving to Alfa Romeo, and that was announced, I believe, on Tuesday. So yeah, shout out to George Russell. He has kept the hearts and eyes of the Mercedes organization, and he's just on a screamer, man. Mr. Saturday, I think, gets the spot that I don't want to say that he deserves, but he gets the spot that I think will suit him quite well.
Yeah, and I think that multiple people could have deserved that spot, and he is definitely one of them. So I would not have been upset with seeing there were a couple people that I feel like could have fit there well, and he is definitely one of them. So very excited for George Russell. I do think that that's going to be interesting, though, next year. I think that George, being a young, hungry, very good driver, and kind of wanting to prove himself, will potentially cause some interesting team dynamics with Mercedes and Lewis and all. Because, hey, I mean, if George is racing really competitively and all, like you said, that they give all the team orders pretty much to Lewis because they're trying to help him out with his driver's championship fight because Valtteri's lagging behind and they got to do that for Lewis and all. Like, are they necessarily going to want to say, hey, Lewis, who's here for another couple years probably, do we want to prioritize him and keep pushing that forward? Or, hey, do we want to give the world to this young guy who could be a driver with us for a very, very long time, potentially? So I think that will be interesting. I think it could be another scenario of Seb Vettel and a young Charles Leclerc, Leclerc was trying to prove himself, be very competitive and all in that drive in Ferrari, alongside a veteran teammate like Seb, who was a world champion, and seeing that kind of conflict of them racing each other hard, having collisions amongst teammates, having issues like that could happen due to the competitive nature of both Lewis and George.
Yes, the thing that maybe gives me gives the edge to George in my mind is the fact that he's able to qualify so well in a car that is just factually at the back of the pack, on race day. So it seems like George is gonna be what's the analogy? It'd be like fitting a supercharged square into a square hole. You know what I mean? Where it's just going to be like, oh wow, qualify, like this is so easy.
Yeah.
And whatever. There's a lot of variables, but with the way that George has been able to perform from like a back marking team, and then yeah, he just has so much promise that to your points about what could happen if they are racing competitively. Yeah, I just hope that he is given the time of day from the team, because yeah, I think there's definitely going to be fireworks, not only like on track but on the podiums as well, because I really think he's going to take a lot of them.
I do too, and I think that that's like just a interesting thing to keep eyes on, because yeah, I do think that George showing what he could do in a Williams and all, even though the Williams has been slightly more competitive this year than it has in the past couple, it shows how good of a driver he is to be able to, I mean, even to just put in those one lap performances and everything that qualifying is, like, that's pretty exciting. Like, there's a lot of things that go into a car being able to put in a single lap that's good compared to quality race pace throughout and everything.
Right.
So the fact that he's been able to do that even for those laps, but do it so consistently, like he has not faltered. I would love to take some time and look back through qualifying performances from this year, and just looking at kind of how he did and where he ended up, just because I can tell you it was not in the bottom four every race, and sometimes up into the top. So
yeah, I'm pretty sure he made it to Q2 like in close to every race.
Yeah.
And then some races making it into Q3 as well. And that's just like far exceeding his teammate Latifi as well. So yeah, he's putting that Williams where arguably it shouldn't be. And I think that's why he's gotten so many looks from so many of the teams. But yeah, that's George Russell up to Mercedes, and then with the Williams empty seat, we have Alex Alban. Back in Formula One. Sorry, I just cut you off.
No. Very, very exciting to have Alban back in. I think that he is a good driver. He got kind of thrust into that difficult position, being Max's teammate at Red Bull, which we have not really seen many people really be able to live up to the expectations and all. And even in some respects, Checo has not fully, but he has looked better than the past couple of options when they were in that seat. So
yeah.
Alex Albon back in F1, driving for Williams, which I think is a pretty cool thing. I think with how Williams has improved their car, it doesn't necessarily mean that Albon's going to be stuck as a back marker. He's shown some promise in being able to be a pretty solid driver a number of different occasions. So I think that could be exciting for Williams as well. So
yeah, not only the solid performances that he already has in Formula One, but the amount of the amount of good performances in DTM that he's racing for Red Bull right now. I believe just last weekend he took a victory, and maybe the weekend prior, I don't think he back-to-back them, but I know he has a couple of wins here in some very recent races. So he hasn't been slouching since being out of F1. He went straight into the Red Bull DTM team, and what's his teammate's name?
For DTM?
Yeah.
I am not sure, actually.
The name escapes me, but yeah, I was just going to say that he's just driving really well in DTM. So, and then on top of that, he's been around the paddock for some of the more recent F1 races. So obviously he's been moving and shaking and trying to get that drive back for the 2022 season. And Williams gave it to him. I'm happy to see Alban back in F1.
Yeah, is that Liam Lawson?
Yes.
Okay, I just
Yes,
was looking into DTM a little bit, so.
Yeah, DTM's sweet. It's like the works, like Audis and BMWs and shit. Oh my god, they're so nice, dude.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. They don't have the same downforce as F1 does, but they're still quick cars.
Oh, absolutely. So that's pretty cool to see. But yeah,
now the one note about Alban that we should keep our eye on is he was reckless. Reckless may be a strong word. He had some aggressive driving moments. So I think from an evaluation standpoint with him in the 2022 season, I'm going to be looking for him to maybe drive with a little more, maybe not caution, finesse though.
I think that was a combination of a couple of things too.
Okay.
And particularly, I mean, both the times that he kind of pushed it to the edge and crashed out were due to some contact with Lewis. So that is one thing that I do agree he does need to have a little more finesse, a little more decisiveness, but I think this will, intelligent decision making is probably better, not decisiveness, but I do think that it is something to keep an eye on, but I have a feeling that with him being in the Williams car, he'll be able to practice a bit more of being just consistent and working on that without, one, the pressure of being in a top car and having to race against some of the best in the world at the front, or really one of the best in the world and probably three of the best in the world with Max, Lewis, and Valtteri in those times. But also with the pressure of being on the chopping block, like I was talking about with Valtteri. That's just a lot of pressure. A lot less pressure in Williams, and I think that is going to give him an opportunity to show and show himself as a good driver and also grow and learn some more of those skills that he will need if he does get back into a stronger race car in the future. So.
No, I think those are all great points. Because he was racing against not only some good competition, but some pretty tough circumstances as well. So hopefully the seat in the Williams, like you were alluding to, allows him to shore up maybe some of his just F1 weaknesses overall, and can work towards being a more complete driver in the move towards more competitive seats in F1.
Yeah, and alongside Nick Latifi, who has also been performing better this year than he has in previous, I think he is a solid bottom of the pack driver. I don't think he's like a bad driver by any means, but he also doesn't just quite have that just explosive talent that George has next to him.
Right.
So I think George outshines Latifi, but I think that he's a solid person for Williams to continue forward with as well, alongside Alex Albon. So that's good that he is hanging in there with that seat as well, as far as we can tell so far.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. So that is the roster moves that we know about.
We do also have, and this came out yesterday as well, but the fact that AlphaTauri did extend contracts with both Pierre Gasly and Yuki Tsunoda. Because there were some talks that I had heard of with people thinking that, Yuki, I don't know, maybe they should look at someone else and whatnot. I'd read some stuff, but I am very glad to see that AlphaTauri is continuing with this kind of this lineup and allowing these guys to grow more on the team and just like develop into drivers. I mean, Pierre Gasly has had phenomenal seasons. So
Yeah, he has.
I mean, like there was no reason that I felt like he should be out of any seat by any means. So that was exciting, but to see them also allow Yuki to go ahead and have another year and take that shot at another season of F1, I think that's awesome.
Yeah, I agree. Because I think after they moved him towards the Red Bull home base, I think we started to see some improvements from Yuki, and also just like rookie years are tough, man. I think they're making a fine what would you say, like risk on Yuki, giving him a second year. Because yeah, I think he will come back as a what's the word I'm trying to use? Like I think he'll come back using what he's learned this year well, and it won't be a wasted opportunity from Yuki.
Yeah, he'll build on his like development and
Yes,
everything. Yeah, build and continue developing and all from this season forward. I think that would be pretty disappointing to see a team, unless someone was like absolutely horrific as a driver,
Right.
to see them just be like, oh, well, we'll give you a rookie year and just be like, oh, just out of here. Sorry. Like,
Yeah, I'm curious how many times that would have happened with, but I imagine the standard is like 2 years, right? You
I would hope so.
give them the rookie year, the follow up, and then if they're still, putting it into the wall.
The only place that I feel like that's a concern is like with the top teams, Mercedes, Red Bull, Ferrari, potentially. If someone's like just comes in, has a bad year, and then they're like, all right, see ya. But you're not going to see that very often, especially AlphaTauri being a sister team and everything. They're not fully they're expected to be a midfield team. Like that's just the way it is. Mm-hmm. And so allowing drivers to grow in that environment and all is great. So that's exciting for both of them. But that's the only other one that other news that I wanted to make sure to mention. But
okay, yeah. Nice. Now, that should be a good amount of the roster, or a good amount of the lineups decided, right?
Yeah, so the only one's second seat for Alfa Romeo, second seat for Williams is unconfirmed as of yet, and then both the Haas seats are not confirmed as being extended as of yet. I don't imagine, like we just said with rookie drivers, for them to only get 1 year racing in F1 before they're ousted. But I guess it's still open, but I don't expect either of them to be gone after the season.
Yeah, that would strike me as odd. But yeah, couple more seats to hear about, and then we'll have the complete 2022 lineup. But yeah, that's a long time away, man. We had a big race this weekend. We had the Dutch Grand Prix at the Zandvoort track. First impressions. Tell me about the race. What did you like? What did you dislike?
Well, I mean, just going back to qualifying and everything, seeing how that shook out, it was interesting because, I mean, we did have, we had Checo going out in Q1, not even making it to the second qualifying round after not being able to get his hot lap started in time to get that lap in before the qualifying ended. We got to see Robert Kubica back into the Alfa Romeo car with Kimi Räikkönen being out due to a positive COVID test. And that actually has been confirmed that Kimi is out as well for Monza. So he's not cleared COVID protocol in time for that race and everything, or they have determined he won't. So coming up, that will be Robert Kubica getting a second opportunity in the Alfa Romeo and everything.
Hell yeah.
So we'll see what he can do. Honestly, though, the standouts are interesting things from the qualifying, where we saw both of the Ferraris have really good qualifying pace, starting P5, P6, just behind Pierre Gasly in the AlphaTauri, and we had Antonio Giovinazzi finishing up in P7 for qualifying to go into race day, which is his best ever qualifying performance. So
yeah, kudos to Giovinazzi for putting it all the way up the grid, and then it was an unfortunate puncture that made him have to pit quickly. For not the first time, but for the second round of pits, he had to go in second time, and that dropped him back down. But yeah, a great qualifying from him. Like you mentioned, the Pierre Gasly qualifying P4 was something else. I thought it was a fast track. I thought it was a lot of fun to see. The one thing, and I think this is what happened with Sergio, was it was a shorter track, and it seemed like the cars were backing each other up a little too much there around the final two turns, and then that messed up a bunch of hot laps. But overall, I love the track. Qualifying was great, and it was a fun weekend.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most frustrating things about these shorter tracks in length is that once the race gets going, there's not as many breaks. And I did feel for some of the back markers and all in terms of the race, because they weren't able to really put in as good of a performance when you're getting blue flags constantly from people coming through. Again, that's frustrating. Like there's only so fast you can go while you're dodging out of the way of the lead cars that are coming through and everything. There's only so much you can do, so at some point that definitely gets pretty difficult and frustrating. I can imagine. The other thing, though, the Alpine cars look good, and I feel like they've gotten better as the season has gone on. Fernando Alonso has been putting in great performances. Ocon has also looked pretty solid. He got his first race victory this year. They started in, I believe it was P7 and P8 in the to start the race and everything. And just putting in performances. I mean, both McLarens finishing behind both the Alpines, I think, is a little unexpected. So definitely kind of interesting to see them just improving throughout the season and kind of getting themselves up there, further up the grid.
Yeah, the later the year is going, the more Alonso and Esteban are coming alive in that Alpine car. And I don't know if it's the developments that they're doing in between the races, if it's the packages that they're bringing, where they're just getting the tuning right on the weekend. But whatever it is, they're really putting it all together and creating some great performances on the track. Because, yeah, like you were saying, with Ocon getting his first victory, not this last race, but the previous one, they are really adding up the points for the first outing for Alpine in F1, really making a good show of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's exciting, and I mean, I think after seeing that last year the Renault car could be competitive with Daniel getting a couple podiums and everything, I think that is awesome to see them after a slow start kind of picking it back up. That midfield fight is always exciting. I get kind of bored when you're just seeing the top three drivers on the track going around again and again and again without much changing between them. Those midfield fights are exciting and fun to watch, and there's a lot of talent there in those in that pack. So seeing those guys kind of get to go at it in some pretty competitive cars with each other is always fun.
Yeah, usually there's a lot of competition. The one team I wanted to go back to was Norris and Daniel Ricciardo on McLaren. They finished P10, P11, getting 1 point for McLaren over the course of the weekend. That was a rather uninspired drive for both of them. Ricardo, he's been having some trouble. So, maybe that's closer to where we expect Ricardo. But Norris has had a run of points finishes recently. So, him being just in P10 is a bit unfortunate for Lando there.
Yeah, and I think, though, at the same time, that does also speak to the track that Zandvoort is. It is a fast track. It is a short track, which we saw with, and I think a little, not the most difficult to pass on, but a little more difficult. So I think based on how like Monaco and some of the street circuit courses had gone earlier in the season, that we felt like Ferrari was pretty competitive. I think that makes sense that they jumped back up the grid and kind of leapfrogged McLaren for this race and all. But I do definitely have some worries now as the season goes on that McLaren is going to kind of continue to drop further in the constructors in that race for third place there with Ferrari. So, we had... just to go back, Monaco, we had Carlos Sainz finish P2 ahead of Lando in P3, and we had Leclerc retire that race, but they seem to have really solid pace, and I believe in qualifying they were both pretty high up. Yeah, Leclerc started P1 or qualified P1 for Monaco with Sainz P4. So they have that good short track race pace. And at Azerbaijan, Leclerc was P4 ahead of Lando, and Sainz was P8 ahead of Ricardo in P9. So both of them were kind of beating out their rivals a little bit in those races. So that does kind of shake things up a little bit there with that fight for third, but
right.
I wouldn't be surprised to see McLaren kind of bounce back once we get onto a different style track that they seem more suited for.
Yeah, and I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure you could make any like grand conclusions about the lack of drive this past weekend. Because like you were alluding to, it was just a one-off. But just from what we've recently seen of Norris, it was a bit of a rougher weekend, not just for him, but for McLaren overall. Now the one driver that really did impress me was Sergio Perez. We talked about the not getting out of Q1. He was all the way at the back, and my man ends his day on Sunday P8 in the points.
Yeah.
What kind of a drive is that? I mean, talk about you can't overtake on this track. He did a lot of it.
Phenomenal. I mean, he had, and not that this track was as difficult to overtake as like Monaco or some of the other ones, but like it's definitely not the easiest on the schedule, and he was just cruising up through everyone. Like he made a phenomenal drive out there on the track. Like he put that together and was able to just really do well. I mean, I would have to look back to see his pit stops and everything, but I'm pretty certain that he was one of the earliest stops and kind of just ran a different strategy than a lot of the other drivers to be able to make his way up through. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, and then just picked his overtakes really well and executed. Man, he had a really good drive, and for a weekend that was or I don't want to say weekend, for a race day that was a 2v1 against Max, it was an interesting dynamic. It felt like Checo was making the dive for Max, where he's like, "I'm coming, man, I got your back." That's kind of how it felt throughout the day, even though Max was away and gone and needed little to no help.
Oh, definitely. But I mean, Max put in a great drive. So talk to me a little bit, I guess, about, we've talked about team dynamics and Mercedes a little bit and everything. Talk talk to me about Valtteri and Lewis with their racing and everything.
I don't know, man. It's hard. It's hard to listen to.
It's difficult to hear all the complaints about anytime Lewis is on the radio. It's that something is wrong. Like, it's not. There's no other communication. There's no there's no conversational whatever between him and his pit lane. It's just like, tires are gone. It's all like, breaking news, tires are gone.
Like, why'd you pit me in between these people? You know, why is this? Why is that? Yeah, it's a lot of complaining, and then on top of that, you get the oh, Valtteri box. Let's go for the fastest lap. Wait, abort the fastest lap. We got to give it to Lewis. And then Lewis is like, what the fuck's going on?
Well, yeah, Lewis is there. They're going, come on, guys. I need that point. I need that point. It's like, guys.
Yeah. Yeah. And that just has to create like such a heightened environment for the whole Mercedes team. Team dynamics and you know, this was the thing about Alfa Romeo is like, yeah, team dynamics seem like pretty tough. Seems like breakdowns of communication. They don't know, like, it's like they haven't talked about the possible audibles before the race. Like, it's like they talk about a win before the race. The win isn't happening, so then they like panic and they wonder why. It's like, well, did we set up a plan B, C, and D? You know, I don't know, but yeah, those radio messages seem very disorganized, I think is a good word.
Yeah, I would say so, and it's just, I mean, to have Valtteri come in to go for the fastest lap and everything, and then for them to immediately do the same with Lewis, like, there's some disconnect there in the team about what the goal is. Is the goal getting the constructors' points and maintaining that lead over top of Red Bull? Is that about getting Lewis his driver's championship? What is that priority there? Because you can't always do both. So
right.
The other thing, though, that I thought was really good from Red Bull was the way that they adapted to pit strategy. We did not see them get caught with their pants down like we have before, where Mercedes comes in for an early pit and they decide, you know what, let's leave Max out there and see what happens and all. They were like, nope, Lewis pitted, next time around, pit, new tires, cover that off. Like, don't let him get the undercut because we are slow to react. And so they did that and did that pretty well throughout. I mean, both times that Lewis pitted, we had Lewis pit on lap 20, lap 21, Max comes in. We have Lewis pit lap 39, lap 40, Max comes in. And he was able to utilize that to maintain his lead and just keep out in front to hang on to a really, really solid race win and drive from him. So...
yeah, right from the lights going out, Max had a pretty solid advantage. The one thing I think that put the nails in the coffin for Mercedes, they put Lewis on mediums on the second pit stop, I believe, and that was unfortunate because they were expecting to go to the end of the race. I don't think the mediums had it, but they put Max on hards for the second stint. So he just had, I think he just had more length. Lewis was pushing and pushing and pushing. I don't think his tires were ever going to have the life in them to get to the end of the race and then even get the overtake done.
I think the only thing that could be said for that was, I think that Mercedes thought that they could pressure Max enough to wear his tires fast. Because
Sure.
if you are under pressure, those hard tires wear very, very quickly compared to others because they take so long to get up to temperature. You can shred those things early on by hitting them too hard. So I think the idea was to get Lewis out there, putting pressure on Max and all, which we did see. We saw him push up to get within a second or so, a second and a half.
Close to DRS.
It was always close, and then he didn't get there into DRS until Valtteri and Max having to pass him held Max up enough that Lewis gained and got into DRS. But then Max was able to go back and just extend the lead back out. So it was also interesting to see, like, it's always interesting to see how Lewis reacts to not being able to win with the car that he is given, because Max just drove it perfectly, and the Red Bull car just looked at that hint better this weekend, that tiny pinch better. And hearing Lewis come over the radio, just being like, he's so fast. I can't. He's just so fast. And then in the interviews after the race and everything, being like, I raced as well as I could. They were just quicker than us and everything. He just looks like so out of sorts at that. I guess that lends itself to what we've talked about with him being a competitor. He is just kind of at a loss for words.
Yeah, like he doesn't even understand losing.
Yeah, he's at a loss. He doesn't get it. He doesn't know why. Like, so it's always interesting to see that, but also very cool with the race victory with Max and all of the Dutch fans and everything that were there. Super exciting for them. I love seeing the clouds of orange that come out from the stands. I don't know how they get those many smoke things into the stadium without being patted down or something, but there's a lot
of it just
them.
Looks so dangerous, man. Like, if I was a driver, I would hate that shit, man. Putting, like, literal smoke on the track, I don't know.
Well, on the in-lap afterwards, Alonso came over the radio and he's like, so I'll assume that Max won because I see a lot of orange. And they're like, yeah, look out for clouds of smoke around like turn 7 and 8 or something like that. It's like they're like having to like be careful as they're going through smoke because you might not be able to. Might have the visibility like we had in Belgium at Spa.
Jesus, man, I know. Like, that's so crazy, man. And you know, it's the fans showing support, but overall, it's just like unsafe.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, and I mean, we'll see if there's anything like that coming up this week. Monza, Ferrari's home circuit, and all.
Break
Italy,
out the red ones.
Would not be surprised to see some flares, some fireworks going off for the Ferrari boys. So we'll see how that goes, but it's pretty cool to look at, but just the other side of it, the danger to the drivers who are still racing and everything is it's a bit out there to allow that, in my opinion. So
well, and I think that's another element is I don't think they're allowed. I'm pretty sure people sneak them in.
Yeah, but like you've got to know at this point, like
sure,
it happens, like. It happens too often for them to not like know that it's happening and like find a way to stop it a little bit. Like there are ways to at least like limit that to an extent.
What if you could get like industrial vacuums and put them at like intervals at the bottom of the bleachers and then just crank them on high so when they're blowing the smoke, they're just getting sucked down into these vacuums, and they don't go over the track.
Like a fan hood in a industrial or a commercial kitchen where just all the smoke's just like gone.
Yeah, and shut that down. Say no flare fun.
Yeah, I mean, there has to be some way, and I think the solution is finding a way to stop people from bringing them in. But it's always something that will happen. But it's definitely something that's a little dangerous, not too exciting. So, but end of the day, Max went and jumped back ahead of Lewis with that race win after last week with the 2-lap race. So Max is back up 3 points in the driver's standings. Checo just inching up on Lando there for that 4th place in the drivers, and Red Bull. I think that's the tough part with Sergio having a tough start and everything. We saw he put in a good drive and everything, but the fact that he ended up just that little bit down meant that Mercedes ends up jumping up another, I believe, 8 points or so in the, 7 points in the constructors and all on Red Bull with that 2-3 finish this week.
I think overall I'm rooting more for a driver's championship than a constructor championship.
I am too. I think
if they can pull both off, that'd be dope. But I'm really just rooting for Max.
I am rooting for Max first and foremost. I think it would be fun to see a different constructor win after so many years of Mercedes. It was, 7 in a row for Mercedes. So I would love to see just a shake-up at the top, and since Red Bull's the only one there that can do it, I would love to see it. But yeah, you're 100% right. I think my focus is on Max for his performances and just being the one of the youngest drivers champions, and just someone who's showing an extremely promising career. So
from all angles, like as a driver, from the PR perspective, as an ambassador for the sport, I think Max is just doing wonderful things for Formula One overall. So yeah, I think a constructors would be awesome for Red Bull just to shake it up. But yeah, just pulling for Max and the drivers. Looking ahead, we have Monza coming up this weekend, the Temple of Speed.
And what else is exciting about it, Justin?
I have no idea, actually.
We are getting our second of the 3 sprint qualifying races for Monza. So,
I did know that. I just didn't know that was the answer you were looking for.
Yes. So if
you gave it to me multiple choice, I would have had to lock down.
Yeah, it would have been the fact that it would have been what's exciting about this. Robert Kubica is starting for Alfa Romeo or sprint qualifying, and it would have been a tough A-B kind of guess, but I think you might have gotten it.
I easily could have got that one wrong. What's so funny about Robert Kubica, and this is the meanest thing I'll say all night, what's funny about Robert Kubica is it looks like the helmet has, squished his head. It looks like he's been in a driver helmet for so long that it's, shaped to that.
To some extent, yeah, you're not wrong. The other thing, honestly, I find it so interesting that he still races because of his really bad accident that he had previously. The fact that he is able to still drive and drive pretty competitively in F1 is pretty wild. So that's exciting for him to be back, but you are right about his head. It looks a little I would think more of how gray aliens are shown, where their head is big at the top and goes down to a kind of slim chin. I would say it's that's what I would be reminded of more.
Gotcha. Okay, so more alien, less race car driver. Gotcha.
Less race car driver helmet squishing his head.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, yeah, now I just joined you on the mean train, so.
Well, I appreciate that as long as I'm not the only one going down with the ship.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we have sprint qualifying again for Monza, which I'm actually really excited about. I thought the first one was super entertaining, and I think at Monza it will be just as entertaining. I think some of the drivers actually came alive in the sprint qualifying on Saturday, and I think it just gives us an action-packed weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have the race this weekend. It will be practice 1 on Friday in the morning, qualifying at noon for us Eastern time. Practice 2, sprint race on Saturday, and then the race on Sunday. So it's going to be it'll be fun to watch, and hopefully the sprint race shows to be a pretty exciting event like the last one I'd say did.
Yeah, it just keeps things moving over the weekend, man, and like an added element of mystery and intrigue. Because they just have like less time on the track before their lap matters. And to me, that's like really exciting. If the teams are like doing good work, like before they get to the track, I think they should be rewarded for that. And the teams that aren't doing good work before they get to the track should have like a tougher time. And so I think just having 1 hour of practice straight into qualifying later that day is super exciting. So yeah, I think there's just a lot of good stuff to be said about the sprint qualifying.
Yeah, absolutely. So it'll be fun to watch. A lot to keep your eyes out for. So I hope everyone enjoys the race, and we'll of course have the recap for you all next week on the episode. So, but Justin, I know that most League of Legends regular seasons are done. So now it's Worlds prep time. We're ready to be seasoned veterans, knowing everything and anything there is about these teams.
The most well-researched League of Legends duo in all of Runeterra.
Oh, absolutely. Like, Freak and Kobe cannot match us.
Ain't got shit on our analysis. But the one thing I will correct you on is all of the regions have been decided. We know all of the teams that will be at the World's 2021 Championships that will be held in Europe.
Yep, and so that being with Vietnam, unfortunately, being unable to send their two
sucks.
teams again. Big bummer. It's going to make it weird again with groups and all, with certain groups having one less team and people having to play kind of like MSI, the round robins for the one group and everything. So I'm interested just to see how they do that, because I think that they will have to take an additional team from the play-in stage to fill that spot in the group stage that Vietnam would have held. So I think they may have to take a fifth team from the play-in, which will be interesting to just figure out kind of how they do that. So,
well, if anything, it's gonna give one of the what am I trying to say? It's going to give one of the less competitive regions, one of their teams is going to get more of a shot than they would have had. So it is in all of the other regions like vested interest for Korea, not Korea, for Vietnam not to be there, just because they get a little bit more of a chance to get out. Overall, it does create some like weird numbers things. But yeah, hopefully we'll see a team use that to their advantage and make the push to get out of the play-in stage. But I imagine we'll get the data on like how that's going to be determined a little bit later.
Yeah, I think they're gonna probably update how that's working and everything for the play-in stage and all of that as we get a little closer and things get more solidified in terms of everything. It's just a weird situation for a region to not be able to go. This being their third international event that they're going to miss in a row. Definitely a bummer. But like you said, I mean, that does open the door. It's not necessarily going to be the 4 seed from China, the 4 seed from Korea, the 3 seed from Europe, and the 3 seed from NA making it through. There is that opportunity for some of these other teams, Unicorns of Love at another international event. Infinity Esports, Detonation, Focus Me from Japan. We have these teams that have been on the international stage before coming back in and having an opportunity to not just try and steal away a spot from one of those major regions, but to potentially have a spot that one of them could slide into for the qualifying or for the group stage as well.
Yeah, and I think it would be elementary of us to immediately discount any of the like up and coming regions, just because in recent years we have seen some of those squads put up great performances.
We saw Gambit almost knock Cloud9 out of Worlds a couple of years ago, out of the play-ins. We've seen, I mean, it's they're. I think I appreciate them changing the name that they call them from wild card regions to developing regions, because that is a much better way to refer to them, because they are continuing to develop and kind of close those gaps between themselves and the upper regions. They're not just like, oh, I'm going to cheese you and hope to get a couple wins and
right.
shake things up. So
right, well, that used to be the narrative. Like, hopefully they have some weird champion pick that they can surprise 1 or 2 teams with. But no, I think now it's more a little more even across the board. But let's go through the regions. Let's go through the teams and lay out all of the teams that are going to be there. We can start in the top regions, lay out the different teams that are coming from each region.
Yeah. So for coming from the LPL in China, we have Edward Gaming, Fun Plus Phoenix, Royal Never Give Up, and then into the play-in stage we have LNG Esports. Fun Plus Phoenix, of course, having Doonby, the phenomenal mid laner that has kind of made a pretty big name for himself and everything. Stake, who is one of those LMS kind of legends and LPL legends as their coach. And then just some well-known names with Royal Never Give Up and with Edward Gaming. I think it's exciting again to see Edward Gaming and some of these guys that have either not had an opportunity to play on the international stage but have looked phenomenal, or for some returning people to be there. I mean, Flandre is one of those top laners that I feel like I've heard Thorin talk about for years and years now as being one of the best top laners in the world. And we really haven't gotten to see him in international competition, so that's going to be pretty cool to see for one. Especially with, I think, the top lane being such a strong role right now. So,
if not the strongest, well, strongest may be like an odd word to use for that, but like definitely highest priority lane for a lot of these teams. It's either that or mid lane that you're playing through nowadays with a strong jungler. So yeah, looking forward to seeing a lot of these Chinese players. Some names that I'm looking forward to seeing again. Pretty much all of RNG's lineup: Xiaohu, Wei, Gala, Ming, Cryin in the mid lane. They're a powerhouse team. FPX, obviously. They have Nuggery in the top lane, Bo, Tien in the jungle. I'm interested to see what FPX is going to do on the world stage, if they're going to use both of their junglers, or if it's going to be one or the other.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting. I wouldn't be surprised to see them utilize both, but I am just more excited because the meta does seem to suit Doinby pretty well again, and I think that's exciting because he's a really solid, intelligent player. So they're going to be fun to keep an eye out for. So
Yeah, I definitely agree. Now, looking at the LPL as a whole, and some of their pick and bans from their regional finals, is there anything that really stands out to you? What are some picks that we might expect from? What are some picks that we might be able to expect from them?
Well, I think the biggest thing from the LPL is that they are really focusing on kind of continued aggression, especially like we said in that top lane role. In the LCK, in the regional finals, we were seeing a lot of the Viego being played. We were seeing Aurelia's come out. We're seeing, and that I believe were primarily mid lane Aurelia's, but the Camille being banned away, Jax being banned away. We had Kennen picks, we had Gwen picks. Like, these are all these aggressive, exciting champions, which I think is something that the LPL is kind of known for. So seeing that priority and all is definitely exciting. And also looking back to the summer playoff finals and all. I mean, Renekton constantly being banned away, Viego being banned a lot. Just a lot of these interesting champion picks. The ones that I think are the most interesting being picks and bans are the Galio and the Trundle, though. I am really... I know we had talked about it before. I am definitely a little surprised by the Trundle being such a high priority. I feel like... honestly, both that and Galio I've not been super impressed by with their current fit into the meta. So definitely have some more games to look back at and kind of see how those are being played, because I don't understand really why that is such a controversial or high priority kind of ban.
Yeah, especially because when you look at the games, I'm not sure those are the highest impact champions, or even the highest impact champions in tandem with the others that are being picked and played. Like, I understand the pillar is quite strong. The Galio counter engage, I understand, where you can bring him in. You can bring him into a fight from far away. I kind of like that idea. It synergizes well with a lot of the other globals that we have going on. But yeah, overall, it's just interestingly different than what we saw in North America. We saw some teams focusing on the Trundle, not all. And we had maybe Galio as a pocket pick or two. But it seems to be pretty high priority here. Yeah, some interesting ones. We had the red side banning away Nidalee for a couple of games. That was interesting. That was kind of nowhere close to the North American meta or even any of the other regions. So that may have been player specific. But yeah, just some interesting stuff coming out of the LPL. The other interesting pick is going to be the focus on Ziggs down in the bottom lane for some of these AD carries. The amount of pushing power that he has rivals that of Tristana, and it can do great things with damage late game. So yeah, that's some of the stuff that I was seeing out of the LPL.
Yeah, and Ziggs being a pick ban kind of throughout the playoffs and everything. Also, the only other pick that intrigues me is the fact that that LNG has played the Zac a number of times in this playoffs, and also had it banned away from them at one point as well. So the Zach pick is an interesting jungle pocket pick that I did not expect to see. I've heard a number of different former professional junglers, analysts, things like that really say that they don't feel like Zach is in a spot to be in competitive League of Legends. So it's interesting to see that come out for them multiple times. So.
Yeah, he has some really interesting like engage options, but I think overall, if the team is playing like well around an early game jungler and trying to get some invades, it can go pretty south. But obviously, I imagine these teams are prepared to defend against that kind of thing if you're picking the Zac. So yeah, kudos to LNG for whipping out a less than popular champ. We'll look forward to Worlds to see if they end up pulling it out there and what works in the meta. But yeah, that's a good call out there.
Yeah, and so I guess that kind of takes us to LCK. So Justin, what do we see coming in from the LCK for Worlds?
The one thing that I thought was super fascinating, like we came from a North American finals, well, not finals, North American playoffs that was like very focused around supports. You could see teams were living and dying by the Nautilus, living and dying by the Thresh. So I think the thing that fascinates me the most out of the LCK is if you look back over their pick and bans throughout the playoffs, is there was a big focus on top lane, mid lane, and junglers in the first rotation of bans, and then banning out the supports was secondary or even tertiary to these teams, where the big focus was on the Rise. Faker didn't get to play that one time, and really none of the teams got to play Rise at all in their finals. They had other picks and other options. Obviously, some teams were getting the LeBlanc. Azir was popular in LCK, but it really is that lack of focus on the supports that stands out to me big time.
Yeah, and so and Faker did get the Rise one time in his in the summer playoff finals, but not in the regional finals.
Okay.
So he was able to play that, and in the semifinals as well, he was able to get it a couple times, but that led to that just constant ban against him in that regional finals, with just the Rise not being allowed to even sniff the Rift for any of those games. But looking at the between the regional qualifiers, the playoffs, like they're just a number of priorities that just seem to be so consistent. Just trying to avoid a lot of those really carry top laners. Lee Sin being banned out constantly, Jace being banned out constantly, the Camille being banned out, being picked, being consistent in that as well. So
yeah, big priority on Camille.
Yeah, so there's a lot, and like you said, the support picks are really just not a priority there in the LCK, which is definitely an intriguing thing. As we have some pretty solid supports coming from Korea. We have Beryl with Damwon Kia. We have Life with Gen G. We have Kyria for T1, who I actually don't know as much about. So definitely some things to learn about his play style and all. But yeah, just there are some solid supports that are going to be at this championship, and I'm surprised, I guess, from their region to just see a lack of priority on it.
Maybe as a region they're more scared of their mid laners and their top laners, which, hey, fair enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's a little bit of LCK. Now, the one thing I know we talked about was the big priority on Kennen from the Korean players. offers an amazing teleport flank, is big in the team fights. And oddly enough, Kennen is one of the champions that always seems to come back around come Worlds time. So it seems like all these teams are getting the world's memos here. They're picking all the right champs.
Yeah, and it seems to also do well into a lot of these like melee and aggressive top lane matchups that we're seeing. I mean, you're going to do well as Kennen into a Renekton, into a Set, into a Camille. Like, you have the movement to get away from them. You have your stuns. You have the range. Like, there's a lot of good aspects of the Kennen, which makes sense why it would be a pretty strong priority. The only other weird pick, kind of like the Zach was in the LPL, we saw the Kassadin come out a couple of different times for Damwon Gaming Kia against T1. And then we saw that again come out in, I believe, the regional finals between Hanwha Esports and T1 as well.
Yeah, I believe Faker played it in game 1.
Yes, that's correct. Yep. So yeah, Kassadin is not a champion I really expected to come out. And I feel like also, just as another thing with the LCK, their champion pools seem very consistent and kind of limited in a sense. And not in a sense that they aren't willing to try, but that they seem to have found what they think are really the best picks out there and available right now.
Yeah, there's like 2 team comps that they're playing.
They just hone in on those and just
one team gets one team gets the other.
Yeah. So
it's kind of actually a good observation.
Yeah, because I feel like there's just a lot more variation in the other regions in terms of champion picks and all. Like, of course, there's always going to be the picks that people see as the best picks, the highest priority, but it's even more so, I guess, in the LCK. So
yeah, talk about min-maxing, man. They're really playing like 4 different champions.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's gonna be interesting. Now, what are the 4 teams going from Korea?
So that is Damwon Gaming Kia, Gen G, T1, and then Hanwha Life Esports was the 4th seed going into the play-in groups.
Very cool, very cool. I think a lot of good stuff to look forward to from LCK. And yeah, let's just hope for some clean games from them, because they have historically been the smudgeless region, in the sense of, Monty and Doa historically would talk about them being the like very clean, low kills and just
macro
like the
focus,
very macro focus. So yeah, let's hope to see some clean games from Korea. Now, just across the pond, give me an intro into the European League, LEC. What are the teams that are going, and what are some strong picks?
Well, so interestingly enough, we have Mad Lions winning the LEC playoffs again. They looked really, really solid. Everything just has clicked well for that team recently, and so I'm excited to see them back internationally with a little more experience under their belt. Excited to see Carzzy and Kaiser in the bot lane matching up. Humanoid, I just think they are going to put some really solid performances in. Right behind them, the runner-up in the LEC, we had Fnatic. So Niski, after moving back across the pond from Cloud9 over into Fnatic's mid lane, coming in there and getting them into Worlds, along with Upset, Hylissang, Bwipo, and then Adam in the top lane. So good to see Fnatic back and ready to roll at Worlds. And Rogue was the 3rd team that we have making that in. So they're in the play-in groups as well. So from the LEC, we see relatively, I'd say, would you say similar priorities for a lot of champions as LCS? I feel like there's a lot more similarities there than the LCS has to most of the other regions.
Yeah, I think, especially in the way that they are a bit all over the place in the picks and the bans, where different teams are prioritizing like mid laners or top laners or ADs. There's a variation of picks and bans while looking very similar to what North America did in their playoffs. The one champion that sticks out is there was a bigger priority on Rakan in the support lane, but as you pointed out, that seems to be more for just the support player of you were saying Mad Lions.
No, for Fnatic, Hylissang was the main person who I believe seemed to be having it banned away from him. And it was priority in some of the other games as well, between G2 taking it away from Mickey X. But yeah, I think Hylissang is one of those sports that the Rakan, even though it's not by any means unplayable, it's just not top tier, I think, compared to what a lot of people are playing. The Threshes, the Leonas, some Gragas support, some different things like that, and to be breaking out the Rakan is definitely interesting compared to what I guess most teams are playing currently.
Well, it has such a good engage that I can see it being a comfort/pocket pick for a lot of support players. So it's really no surprise that we're seeing it. Like you were saying, it's not defunct by any means. So yeah, the Rakan in the support seems pretty interesting. And then the other note on team comps is the willingness to play Cassiopeia. I don't know how much that's going to matter going forward to Worlds. Maybe it was just an interesting note for the playoffs, but depending on what the patch does, that may be a boon for the European mid laners if Cassiopeia does end up being a contested or priority pick. Especially if maybe things like Yasuo or Yone, we know people are playing the Irelias, so there may be a lot of good targets for that miasma on Cassius W, and the European players have been more willing to pick that up in some of those matchups.
Yeah, and I think it also shakes out pretty well against the Rise in a lot of situations too.
It's a big trading advantage with the Rise.
Yeah, at least in the early on. Obviously, once Rise hits his item break points, he's got some really good bursts and everything to just blow waves up and all. The miasma though as well. I'm not sure how the interaction fully works with Rise's teleport and all. So there are some different things that could come into play there, but it's definitely a pick to keep an eye on to see if that does end up coming out too much. But otherwise, I mean, it's still very, very focused on some of these aggressive and strong top laners. You've got the Gangplanks, you've got the Renekton's, you have the Jace, just a number of these kind of aggressive picks that are still, of course, priority and everything. And I'm hoping that with the willingness to play those kinds of styles and all with the top laners, hoping that the top laners from the LEC kind of can match up against some of the LPL and LCK top laners that we have coming to the tournament, because I think that would be, with you saying and mentioning that is kind of one of the most important roles right now in the current meta. I mean, when you have the likes of Xiaohu, Khan, Nuguri, Flandre going on to the international stage, some of those matchups are going to be some pretty intimidating ones, I think, for most of the other regions coming against them.
Yeah, those are some superstar names from a traditionally superstar role. So yeah, I think it's going to be a pretty good tournament. So that was some of the picks, some of the teams, and some of the I guess things to look out for leading up to the World's tournament. Aaron, is there anything that we missed?
Not really. We've already covered, of course, the LCS stuff over the past few weeks, so we don't feel like we need to get into that as much. But just as a rundown of some of the other teams that made it, so we had PSG Talon making it straight into the group stage, coming from the PCS region, and then in the playing groups alongside LNG, Hanwha, Rogue, and Cloud9. We have Beyond Gaming, the runner-up from the PCS, Unicorns of Love, the LCL Summer Champs, Infinity Esports, who are the Latin American, the LLA Summer Champs. We've got Galatasaray Esports coming from Turkey, which is a Turkish football club that I'm aware of, but I don't really know too much about their team in general. I'd have to look a bit more at their lineup and all. Then Red Canids from Brazil, Detonation Focus Me from Japan, and then Peace from Oceania, the LCO. So that kind of wraps up our teams who have qualified for the play-ins as well as the group stage for this year's Worlds tournament.
Yeah, very, very many teams, players, storylines, champions to look forward to. I think coming up in the next episodes leading up to Worlds, maybe we'll take a look at some teams, take a look at maybe some of the other developing regions, because there we'll only have one team to look at. We could look at some of their picks, some of their players. But yeah, a lot to learn about still. On the run-up to the World's 2021 tournament. Yeah, I think there's a lot of good stuff to look forward to. What do you think, Aaron?
Yeah, I think that we have a lot of just stuff to look into, more knowledge to gather, and be able to put together before Worlds. So I'm looking forward to it, and the whole kind of run-up going into that. So.
Yeah, it should definitely be a good time. Now there's some Magic games I wanna bore your brains out with here.
Let's get to it.
Ian's still winning games, and it is I think it's due to our turn length going a lot longer. Like looking over the game notes, we've had like 12, 13 and even longer turns. So I think there's something to be said for like him having the advantage when games go longer. Maybe it's like it has to do with like cards that he plays or whatever that give him more of a long game. But yeah, we went 0-2 against Ian on Monday night. I played a blue-black control deck and a red-white equipments deck. So part of me thinks it's like my deck choice. I think if I really wanted to be a tryhard, I could probably win more games. But I like to give a little bit of love to the decks I don't play all the time, you know?
Yeah, it's definitely fun to kind of break some of those out, break the typical mold that you guys play in. And you're playing for fun, so you are not looking to necessarily have to be playing your most competitive things. You're not
right.
Money is not on the line.
I wish it was, man. That would be a dynamic.
The stakes, confetti, trophies, and women that come along with a Magic the Gathering tournament are not
all the women
are not waiting in the wings. So yeah, you can just kind of enjoy it as a group of friends playing. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is interesting. I think the one note, and I feel like Ian says this every time. I may have said this before. Excuse me. But Ian says he has a couple of friends that would be willing to play on some of the nights that we get together, which would give us more players for the group. Because as you know, one of the issues that we run into is just not being able to find 4 people every week. Or even multiple times a week. Because I'd be more down to play more games. But Ian was talking about having a couple friends that would be willing to play. But it's just so tough to try and squeeze 2 games in a week and like feel satiated.
Yeah. Well, it's just that's so little, and I understand it's still not the easiest to get together and all, but like to get together and only play 2 games, it's a little.
It's tough, man. I mean, they do take like an hour and a half or whatever each, and I guess that is also the comment of like the longer games is maybe if we played the faster games, we would get more games in, but then then you're just playing the same decks over and over. I don't know what the answer is, but the one thing that I will say that was really funny is now this is where you're gonna have to Google 2 card names, but Ian played. This was probably around like turn 11 or so, turn 12. Ian played a Torment of Hailfire for all of his mana. I think he tapped out for like 14 mana for Torment of Hailfire, so it would have been an X of 14. And so each of us would have had to pay 3 life 14 times, or discard 14 cards, or sack 14 things. It's a brutal card. It's like a game ender, right? It's supposed to be like you guys lose. But Ian tapped the fuck out. He didn't have any mana left, and I was able to play one of the best cards in Magic. It's called Mana Tithe. 1 white mana for an instant that says counter target spell unless its controller pays 1.
So he tapped out all his mana to throw at you, and you were like, you need one more.
Dude, and the second he did it, I was like, did you tap out? I said, do you have any mana left? And he looks at his board, he goes to count, and he's like, nope, that's it. I go, Mana Tithe, motherfucker. Dude, it was so good. I love that card so much. And here's me just like doing random shout outs. There's a shout out to Caleb Gannon. He does vintage cube videos and like just like other like Magic content online. But he talks about Mana Tithe being one of the best cards in limited formats, like when like in the draft environments and this and that. It is so fucking strong. I've watched him like win games with Mana Tithe, so I've put Mana Tithe in my commander decks, and that's like the second time now that it's coming up aces.
That's
and
awesome.
Ian was so salty. He was so mad, and I mean, of course, he still won that game, but I set him back a good amount.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I was super pleased. So yeah, we just had some fun, a couple of fun games on Monday. I always enjoy talking about them. But yeah, that was my Monday night, and just looking forward to more games. Hopefully, his buddy Adam and Ben can get in, and we can just get some more games going.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's I enjoy hearing about the games and everything, and hearing about you getting to play. I know you enjoy it, so I'm definitely about that, and hoping that we can continue to have some more games to talk about here on the podcast too. So.
Well, I appreciate that, man. Now let's not take up any more of the good people's time. Give me your flavor of the week here, good sir. What have you been munching on? What are you listening to?
So, flavor of the week, Monday night when I got back from the shore and everything after the Labor Day weekend, Colleen and I got sushi from a place close by. We tried out. I am someone who I very often just go for the same kind of foods that I know that I like, because I like them enough that for me in most cases I'm willing to not even branch out because I know how much I'll enjoy them.
Yeah, and I value the experience of a good meal.
Yeah.
Like, there's so much disappointment in like branching out and just like, ew.
And especially for something like sushi, where if you're paying for some like good rolls or some of the specialty rolls and all, they're like,
bro.
Yeah, they can be pretty pricey. So I don't typically want to risk that money feeling like it went to waste or like it could have been used better.
Agreed. Yeah.
However, I did try a couple of rolls that I normally wouldn't have necessarily. One had some mango and avocado on top of it and everything. It was really solid. I think I've realized that I just like sushi in general. There's really not many rolls or things about sushi that I've ever found myself to dislike. So that was my food for the week, was some really good quality sushi on my Monday, on my
Nice.
Labor Day. For my music, I'm still listening to Donda primarily, and that is just, I think, more of a, now that the excitement and all of that, like me wanting to just have fresh ears and everything have kind of settled in and all, I enjoy taking a little bit of that out of the mix and listening to it back through for kind of what it is or what it will be for me more long term. And so I haven't really fully been able to go back and just listen straight through to the whole album, but what I have gone back and listened to and everything, I do still really enjoy. And I do just have have to give a lot of props to Kanye. I really like the album. And it seems like there's some mixed opinions on different things out there, but I do enjoy it a lot. So it's something that I'll probably periodically come back to down the line and have some of those songs onto some playlists and everything. So that is my music for this week. I'll probably be slowly branching back into some different music going forward. Still got to listen to that Drake album, it's just...
Probably don't have to do that.
It's just sitting there waiting for me.
Yep. Just
calling
forever
my
waiting,
name.
man. Yeah. Brutal.
Then for my show, it's I've been watching through Euphoria on HBO, which is... have you heard of it? Do you know much about it? It came out like probably a year and a half ago or so.
Okay.
Well, Zendaya is in it. She is playing a kind of the main character who's a teenager who has some drug addictions and all, with just a lot of like craziness. And I think for me, it's a really well-made show because I think that the scenes that they are doing drugs and like everything in, I think it gives a pretty interesting depiction with the visuals and all of kind of like a sense of... It kind of delves into the change that character is experiencing, like from their perspective a little bit, whether or not
Right.
it's fully accurate to what someone would feel like for those different things. I think it's an interesting concept to try and kind of use different visuals for different things to give the right feelings and all. I think that's pretty cool. The only thing that I'm kind of like about with the show is that there's just no way in any realistic world that all of the things that happen in this show would happen to all of these people in their lifetime. Like, there's just too many crazy things that happen in like each and every episode where I'm just like, it takes me out of it a little bit because I'm just like, this is not realistic that like that this group of 10 main high schoolers or whatever are the main number of main focuses are in the show, that group would just be like having all of this shit flying at them every fucking day. So that's the only thing that kind of takes me out of it. Otherwise, really enjoyable, well produced, and just cinematically, like, visually appealing show to watch, I would say. So
Nice. And you had said they found some interesting ways to depict like the changes in like altered states.
yeah, so like
That's cool.
yeah, the like different drugs kind of having different visual experiences for whoever's watching, and seeing
Gotcha.
like some of them. It's like real like blurry and kind of like movement back and forth. Other ones, it's kind of like just they've got all these like different things moving around, like just the frame and all is kind of like changing, and or
Right.
there's color added in or different things like that kind of separate everything from just like, oh, they're on some drug, like this is what drug is, like they're like, well, Molly, like you're looking at how they're reacting to it, or like fentanyl, or like
Right.
all these oxy, like all these different things. It's kind of interesting how they
Jeez.
portray it. So
Damn.
yeah, so definitely some heavy parts to the show too.
Yeah, that sounds intense, man.
Yeah, but I have enjoyed it, and the acting is well done as well. So that's pretty cool.
Well, you got Spider Girl. It better be good, dude.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I don't know if she's Spider Girl. She's Spider Man's love interest.
She's what, Mary Jane? No,
I
she's
think
not.
Mary Jane.
I don't know.
MJ. No, she's just MJ.
Yes, she's MJ, which is yeah.
Whatever.
So-
I don't know. I don't pretend to know the details.
Yeah.
No, that sounds awesome though. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Now, are you watching that with Colleen?
I am, yeah. So
Hell
we're
yeah.
a lot of shows that we've been watching, and also I've been enjoying kind of like diving into a bunch of different stuff and trying new things or new shows and all. I kind of like that a lot of them are not extremely like long, where we're just like slogging through tons of episodes. A lot
Right.
of these are kind of shorter, like 1 or 2 seasons, cool concepts and different things. So
Yeah, that's sweet. Yeah, instead of wrestling with the same thing for months on end, you can just get the story and on to the next thing. That's kind of neat.
yeah, definitely. So
Nice.
for yourself, my friend, flavor of the week.
I'll start where you ended. So my visual medium this week is we watched Gone Girl, the David Fincher epic with Ben Affleck and I can't think of the lady that played the girlfriend. I can't think of her name. But yeah, it was my second time watching it. It was the first time she watched it, and that is just a screamer of a good time. I love how Fincher creates so much doubt in the minds of the viewer. Like, especially if you're coming in like blind to the story, where you don't know like any of the details, if you haven't read the book, if nobody spoiled the ending. I love the way you are met with 2 untrustworthy narrators where like neither story you're being told is like the complete truth. I think that's a fascinating like storytelling mechanic in film. I think it's fun to learn as the viewer that everything you're being shown isn't necessarily like the truth or real. I think that's amazing. So I find that to be one of the most engaging elements of Gone Girl. No spoilers, of course, but I guess that is like a spoiler in and of itself, where like you can't trust either character, but whatever.
But it's kind of cool because that's how life is. Like, there's always like that. There's a saying. There's always 3 sides to a story. It's like one side, 2 side, and what actually happened. Like, it's kind of cool seeing that from a narration perspective played out and all. And I've seen that movie once many years ago, or at this point it feels like many years ago. But it's definitely one that I would consider going back to. It's been a while.
Such a good one, man. Ben Affleck's performance was amazing. David Fincher is one of I think one of the greatest directors of our generation, and it's just a quality picture. And even like Neil Patrick Harris's character in it was really good. Just a solid project all the way through. So if you haven't seen it, Gone Girl by David Fincher, that's a good one. My food this week, I've been fucking around with chicken salad and like apples and nuts and like little onions. So I've been slapping that on toasted bagels with some spicy brown mustard for lunch.
Interesting.
So I've been really fucking with that. It's super tasty. I love a good chicken salad.
Have you ever tried it with a little bit of oil and vinegar?
Yes, yes, and that is
Pretty
super
good.
tasty as well.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's just a great combination. Like I enjoy wet sandwiches more than dry sandwiches, so that oil and vinegar combo is just super tasty. So enjoying the chicken salad on a bagel. And then for my music, I've been listening to some original soundtrack music, Django and Across the Universe specifically. Both of those soundtracks, well, they're good for different reasons, but Across the Universe is really strong, just like with the remakes of old Beatles songs. And then the Django soundtrack, it's laid out in the same order. I believe that you hear the songs in the movie, so you get like recalling of scenes from the film as you're like listening to the album straight through. And so one of my favorite moments, and I'm gonna pull up the name of the song just so I don't fuck it up. Django soundtrack. So it is. I just want to make sure I pronounce it properly. So it's track 16 on Cora Qui, or Ancora Key, I guess you would pronounce it, where that's the song that's playing when you go into the dining room where Django, Leonard, like when everybody's sitting there at the dinner table and you have like the women from behind the table like coming down laying the plates down, and it's like it's the whole opening to that dinner scene where Leonardo ends up like freaking out on them and smashing that glass.
Yeah.
It's the opening song to that sequence, and I just love the total like tonal shift. It's just such a beautiful moment in the film. It's a beautiful moment in the soundtrack. And there's something when like music can evoke the moment in a movie. And I don't think there's anybody that does it better than Tarantino, where I'm sure many people talk about this, but the Steelers wheel song Stuck in the Middle with You. I cannot hear that song without seeing the cop in the chair with what's his name? I think his last name's like Mason or something. I forget what the actor's name is, but dancing around him with the razor blade, where the Steelers wheel song is playing in Reservoir Dogs, where he cuts the guy's ear off.
Yeah.
Like that song to me is synonymous with that scene. There is no uncoupling them in my mind, and there are so many moments for me in films of Tarantino's where scenes are coupled with the song. It's such a beautiful marriage. So those two, the Django soundtrack and Across the Universe, are amazing.
Nice, very cool. Definitely a different music interest this week from that. Looking at those soundtracks, I don't do that.
I
too
love
often.
them so much. They're so good.
Yeah.
Like if you've ever listened to one that comes to mind that's just like instrumental is I'm pretty sure Hans Zimmer did the soundtrack for Black Hawk Down. Like that is, it's unreal.
Yeah.
There's like I'm pretty sure there's only one or two songs that have vocals, and even then it's just like chanting, but it is unreal, and it's so like evocative of the film that I think you'd try and be crazy to make the argument like, oh, you could do that movie without that specific soundtrack, or that specific soundtrack would work in another film. I think they are like synonymous together.
Yeah.
And he's another great one, Hans Zimmer. He knocks it out of the park.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at like the scores that he's done and everything, Interstellar,
Harry Potter,
Inception, The Dark Knight. We've got Dunkirk, which I'm not sure if you'd seen. That's a
Dunkirk's
very
amazing.
good, very, very good movie. The Dark Knight Rises, Batman, Pirates of the Caribbean. Like this is unbelievable. How
he's done so many
of these just extremely well-known movies he has done the soundtracks to. That's incredible.
Yeah,
So.
him or I think I was wrong about Harry Potter. I think that was John Williams.
Yeah.
But yeah, just it's an interesting line to explore. Is just movie soundtracks. They can be amazing sometimes.
Yeah.
But that's enough gushing from me. Is there anything? Is there anything that we missed?
I think that kind of covers everything on our end for this week. Really excited to have another episode in the books and everything. Thank you all again for, of course, coming and listening. Wherever you are listening from, whether that's Anchor, Google Podcasts, Spotify, any of those. Of course, find us on Twitter at tall and short of 1, the number 1. We're out there just waiting for some interactions to be able to talk with you guys about what's going on in the worlds of F1, League of Legends, Magic the Gathering, and also looking forward to seeing some more interactions with you all down the line. But Justin, I think that's all I got.
I just wanted to say thank you so much for spending your time with us here this evening. We really appreciate it. If you liked what you heard this evening, hit the subscribe, hit the like button, let us know what you enjoyed. This has been another Tall and Short of It episode. Peace out, everyone.
Later.